some of the MIT research actually identified four common failure modes on the road from POC to profit. It's a learning gap, workflow gap, trust gap, and investment gap. But let me ask Praveen. So Praveen, from your perspective, out of these four failure modes, which one kills the most AI initiatives, and why does it catch everyone off guard, even when the pilot proves the technology works? Also, explain. If you could also explain your domino theory of failures that you shared with us earlier.
Yeah. So, Vishwendra, I think that's a very good question. If I look at it, actually all four modes which you talked about, learning, workflow, trust, and investments are actually interrelated to some extent. And since we specifically discussed about the pilots, which are the proof of concept, then scaling them into proof of profit, why there is a problem. So, couple of qualifications here. So generally what happens is if you're looking at proof of concept, okay, let's face it, you are never really taking the entire scope. Yeah. Before for PUC, you are taking one variable outcome, which is the most troublesome or something, and you are proving that yes, this is the tool, this is the solution, this is the process which is going to work. Okay, so that is one. Second thing is the real fact of life is that it is very difficult to capture the business process as is as well as to be. Okay, if anybody is saying that they are really well aware of it, I would find it very hard to completely take it because uh, in my previous life, we had engaged Accenture only to do business process mapping as is in 2P, paying sizable amount of sum. Okay, but even then there were gaps. Now, if people of big four consulting can make errors or gaps, unintended, okay, inadvertently, but then let's face it that yes, there is a issue there. So typically, what happens is for the sake of simplicity, let's say it's a learning gap. Learning what is the agile process, knowing all the nuances, and also learning or envisioning what is should be the to be processed. Now, there comes the next part, which is the workflow. I talked about the sentiment analysis, and there was no workflow to support that there is an action which should be taken, there is an outcome. Now, what happens is, so learning gap is one, okay, which is the start. Sometimes the investment gap also could be a trigger if it is underinvested, the pilot itself, then it is not equipped to have sufficient resources to do a meaningful POC or meaningful project which will give us the confidence. So then, in which case, there is always it can be the trigger that because the whole thing was so underfunded that nothing could move beyond a particular level. Now coming back to where I was, so first is the gap in understanding, which is also again getting compounded with the workflow gaps, because what happens is when you look at one process, there is always a sub process, there is a dependency, there are other interfaces, there are people who own the outcome, etc. So that's a workflow gap. Now when you have this learning gap and workflow gap, what is the eventual outcome because of the gap? It is the trust gap. Now trust is the hardest currency to earn and the easiest currency to lose. Okay, and particularly, so what we tend to do is we tend to look at it, or we want to reframe it is a resistance to change. People are having change management issues, we are having cultural issues, and so it's often gets camouflaged. Now with all this, if there is not that feeling of confidence, if there is not the feeling of ownership, if there is not the feeling that everything is looked at, or at least we are not able to confidently say, okay, these are the likely errors, or these are the likely success rates, and these are the likely points where we need a human in the loop, or this is where we want to make sure that decisions are owned, okay, or the failures are owned, then eventually that entire picture is getting translated into people who are going to put their dollar where you want it, right? Correct, so yeah. Therefore I think that it's a domino effect after all this. Then eventually the investment, because organizations, like you said, the broadcast media said We are not interested in what is the compute.
Hmm.
We want to know revenue. So business will always want to know what is the outcome that you are talking about. Okay, they are
Absolutely.
not interested in compute. They are not
Hmm.
interested in tokens. They are not interested in what is the tool that you are using behind it. They want to
Hmm.
know in specific business terms what is the outcome. And
Yeah.
with these gaps, there is a cascading effect. Particularly the trust gap, which is the last result. With trust gap, it gets and typically in most organizations, I've worked in Indian organizations and multinational, the grapevine is always much stronger than you think it is. Okay, so then the feel, the mood, everything starts.
Yeah, we lost you, Praveen. I think there's some issue, technical issue. But quickly, let me go to GD. If you look at these failure modes, what are those failure modes? Like Praveen did talk about some failure modes, but do you have any other perspective? In fact, what you shared in terms of ROI. There's also a question that I have received. So post your response, and I'll also raise that question to you.
Sure. Sure. So I look at it from two viewpoints, right? The domino effect or the failure modes that we're talking about. We're talking about four failure modes: learning gap, trust gap, workflow gap, and the investment gap. I
Hmm.
look at it from two views. If I'm creating an AI engine, or I'm trying to set up an AI engine, or let's say an AI project I have taken up. So from the point of view of AI setting up and the engineering team and how that goes, is to start with, there is a learning gap, right? That is a
Hmm.
big because I mean there's only so much one can know about it. Today there is no one person who can say I'm an expert in implementing AI end to end for an enterprise,
Hmm.
and we're talking in enterprise context, right? So there is no there is no one person who knows it all, and hence there is a learning gap, which kind of gives way to workflow gap. Because I don't know much, or I don't know everything, I'm not an AI really. So because the individual does not know, or the team does not know, there's a workflow gap that comes as a I mean as a effect of learning gap.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
this, what happens is, then there is a trust deficit,
Yeah.
because the workflow is not known, because people don't have all the answers, so there is a trust deficit.
There's a
Now,
point of no return.
yeah, and kind of all of this results in, why should I invest more? So an AI
Absolutely.
needs a lot of investment. So this is from an AI point of view. But
Hmm.
from an enterprise point of view, how do you kind of fix this? The first thing is, the enterprise, the leaders typically should start with trust, right? This
Hmm.
new technology, every time there is a new technology, you need to have a budget for R&D, and kind of set it aside and forget about it. Don't look for a P&L attached to an R&D project. So if you get to that, then the trust, then you talk about, once the trust is there, the investments come down to whatever extent. If you're $100 million organization, probably you throw in a couple of millions and do what is possible for a couple of millions. So the 2% is the bare minimum you can expect.
Hmm.
And then you go to, once that is there, I'm sure teams will kind of brace up. And then comes the learning, invest, reskill, upskill. I think that is the need of the hour, especially the India system. While we say we are doing 10 million people are getting trained and all of that, I think we need to do much, much more and much deeper. There is a lot of discussions that I'm part of, where we are looking at how can you make it reach the highest potential in the shortest time frame. It's not about your Udemy or Coursera or all the online YouTube channels. It's about the method and the approach, and who will focus on what. I think that's
Hmm.
a very big thing. And then finally comes the workflow. So
Hmm.
the enterprise should not panic. The current systems, legacy systems that are working as they are working, R&D budget, and from there you start. So you go through all the four aspects, so that there is no deficit in any of these things. And one more point I want to add. Praveen is not there. I wish he's listening. He talked about business doesn't
He's
care
listening.
about outcomes.
He's,
I think business must start caring about outcomes. Okay. He said business doesn't care about anything else other than outcomes. In the AI era, every individual, whatever shape or form or whatever role the person plays, must care about, how do I get that outcome?
hmm.
Why are we doing this? These questions, every individual, nobody is going to escape this. And if they escape, they face the consequence. So I'll stop there, Vishwan.
Thank you, GD. And we have got a question about the ROI. So, do you suggest to monitor metrics at least if the impact of ROI has some miles to go? And what kind of metrics generally you watch out for? So, that's a question from your perspective. What are the kind of metrics that the people should watch out for, if not ROI?
I wouldn't say don't watch out. I didn't say don't watch out for return on investment. I said call it as return on intelligence for the time being, because you are gaining more and more knowledge when your POC is successful or a failure. So the return on intelligence is a very important aspect to see how far am I getting ahead of the curve and understanding how this whole beast called AI works in my context of the
Mm,
enterprise.
mm,
Metrics, traditional metrics will not work. We will have to come up with metrics depending on what kind of organization it is. People usually say, I need 5% productivity. So my question is, have you baselined your numbers? Do you
mm,
have, so if someone says, I want 10% productivity, 10% return on investment, what is it today? And how do, so let's say you had 100 people doing a job. Are you saying you want to do the same job with 90 people? Right now, that people thing is a big talk, right? Am I going to
mm.
lose jobs? So fear of losing jobs and all of that is going doing the rounds now, and hence if you're not clear about what you mean by productivity, because that's not going to happen immediately.
Mm,
It will
mm.
not happen, because the more and more I look at this subject, I think the more and more the need to educate people in so many different aspects of this AI as a topic, that there is so much to do, there is so much to learn, there is so much to earn, and hence the ROI has to be specific to the industry, to the organization, and define it clearly and track that. Definitely the metrics can't be what it was for an SDLC. That much I can
Yeah,
tell.
yeah, absolutely. Just to add to your point, in fact, I was going through some research report. It was from BCG and McKinsey. So there are certain categories of ROIs that can be actually looked into. One is, of course, cost and productivity. You also talked about that. Second is revenue. Revenue growth and revenue. Third is speed and acceleration. So how are you bringing agility? So what kind of ROI metrics that can be, worked around that is speed and agility. And fourth is in terms of that trust and governance that you can bring in. So these are four different categories that they talked about from ROI perspective. But
No, but
let me
question
move to
is, how is that different from the traditional metrics? We have always measured all of this, right? So
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying,
absolutely.
because AI is I would say it has limitless possibilities. Our
Hmm.
thinking has to change as to what is real success. How do I define real success? Assume everything becomes AI-fied and people
Yeah.
lose jobs. Who's going to buy all the AI products that we are making? Who's going to
Hmm.
use the sophisticated technology? So there are very pertinent questions that we should ask. Well, how do you define success? How do you define productivity? So your
Yeah,
metric has to be completely rewired. It can't be what has been there traditionally for ages. That's again
exactly.
my view.
Thanks, GD. Arun, if your views on failure modes, what
Oh,
would you recommend? Any contrary view from your perspective?
yeah, I don't have a contrary view. I think we've spoken quite a lot on a lot of things, with reference to ROI and failure modes and stuff like that. My submission is this: when it's a technology that is common,
Mm,
okay. When SAP HANA was introduced way back in 2010, okay, we had roughly the same kind of feelings that came about. No, HANA is great, it does things fast. I can ask it a question, it'll give me this, it'll give me that. People, all of these discussions happened then.
mm,
So what is its adoption right now in the industry? How many of us have moved from ECC to HANA or are
mm,
moving? Okay, from 2000, we are in 2025.
26.
Yeah,
mm,
26, sorry. Uh, I'm still 15 days backwards. Uh, so we are still in 2020, we are in 2026. So we're talking of about 15 years plus with HANA being introduced. And we
mm.
have not had that kind of adoption. People are still moving to HANA. We're still hearing people say that, okay, I'm going to move to HANA. I want to do this, I want to do that, and all that
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah. So what are we talking of? When HANA came, we did the same discussion. Right now, AI, we're having the same discussion. When we take the view that this is a technology as a tool to improve my processes, my production levels, my ability to predict, my ability to make decisions, that's when we start moving the needle forward.
Yeah, correct.
That's a key, that's a pivot point for us. When we make that change in mindset, is when we start pivoting towards progress into AI. We do not do a project to deploy AI. Okay, we will use AI to improve the entire compute aspect of a process. But if the process is not improved, it is garbage in, garbage out. Even if it is AI throwing out that garbage.
Got it.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
so we are all having this discussion, and mind you, all of this discussion is important. We need to have debates and those fights and those chai pe charcha and tapri pe charcha and all of those things on these topics. I will definitely encourage it. Uh, but we need to still come down to the point that this is a tool, and we need to look at where it fits in the entire enterprise. Okay,
Right.
as
Yeah.
an individual and as the process itself to improve the business. That is my take on it.
Absolutely. Understood, Arun. So, while we are having this conversation, I think Shilpa is facing some issues in terms of we are getting echoes. I think there was issue earlier, but it shouldn't be in echo anymore. It is rectified. And then we have this question from Shilpa again, which is to GD, ma'am, SDLC process was long, hence we had to wait for years for ROI, but AI-driven world is fast. Still, do we have to wait for years? So,
A very good question. So, I think the process of SDLC, right? So I've lived through it for 30 years, 3 decades. I mean, kind of got into the industry when we were still doing stuff augmentation, body shopping. That is how we got into the industry in the 90s, and then we moved from strength to strength. And today we define processes. We are so good at it. We've learned it over years. Right now, AI may be very fast, but humans have a pace. I believe strongly that just because the technology is pulling you to an extent where you will make those kind of rapid decisions, I think we should refrain from doing that. I think the way we think, our experience, that is one of the biggest differences between AI and humans, right? I always keep talking about this. My knowledge, my wisdom, my experience, and my exposure, what I have seen around is unique. Like that for each one of us in the call now, right? And all the humans around. So we have to bring that to the forefront when it comes to adoption of AI. I think Arun beautifully put it, right? If it doesn't serve the purpose, what use of this technology then? So we need to take a conscious call, and that only humans can take. And that businesses have to think through. Do we need AI here? Do we need automation here? How much of it do we need? So these are questions only humans can answer best, right? And hence, AI might be fast, but humans have to pace it out and do it for the benefit of humanity. I hope that answers Shilpa.
thank you, GD. So, do you think human can slow down AI adoption? But that's on the fun part of it. It was just a comment, not a question. But we have got another question, which is from a different perspective altogether. This is from Santhanam Devanand. So, is it advisable to take a wait and watch or run for the first mover advantage for an AI first approach? Uh, any thoughts from the panel?
Yeah, I think I have been answering, so Praveen and Arun can chime in. I have my views, but I'll wait for them to share.
So,
Praveen, you're on mute.
Praveen, you're on mute, but I will just start as
Yeah.
so. When I look at that question, I would say that we follow the same old process that we have been following for a long time. Okay.
There's an echo coming
Echo
from
with
Praveen.
Praveen's line.
Yeah.
Now
Go
it
ahead,
should be
Arun.
So,
better.
yeah. So, okay, I think we are better. So, let's look at the low-hanging fruits. So again, the need to have, the good to have, the best to have, or however we pace it out, or the low-hanging fruits that we can take. What's the mid-tier and what's the long-term goal? So there are things that we can do with AI right now. So most of us use Office 365. Copilot is free with it. A lot of the tools are free with it. Excel, we all use that. A very old, a very good friend of ours used this line on the first day of training for MS Office. Was using MS Office as a patent tank to kill a fly. Uh, okay, so and that is a
That-
line that stuck with me for almost 20 years now.
No, so
So
you address that, Arun. So if there's a business case, then and you have mapped out that business case, then you should take a first mover advantage and start talking about
yes,
your
Yeah,
AI.
if it is well deployed, well documented, small ones. Don't take the big
Yeah,
ones. Take the
correct.
small ones.
right. So just
Absolutely.
to add, Vishwendra, so I think it's never going to be a binary choice whether I should wait or whether I should, kind of be the first one, because this is not the way to approach it. The real question is whether there is a business case. It is not because I have access to a tool, so I would rather be the first mover. I would rather recommend look at it if you can be the first learner in understanding the tool and knowing your business, and then say where is the real fate. Okay, so I hope that
Absolutely.
covers.
There's
So,
in continuation to that question, there's another question that I've received, but it is from different perspective. So we are providing AI automation services. Which industries we should target that can foresee a clear ROI with AI automations? Again, that this question goes back to what you shared earlier. Have you defined that business case? But if you want to share any viewpoint with this question to this question.
Right. So when we talk of AI automation, again, this is a very, maybe 5,000 feet level perspective. Okay. Automation can apply to any place. Okay. What we've seen is there is a domain expertise which comes into leverage here. If you know the business, if you know the domain, if you know the industry, where there is a clear impact, for example, healthcare would have different levers. Okay, in case of healthcare, there is a Indian startup which is actually automated the entire process of reviewing the images and giving interpretation of the likely issue, health related issues. Now, in each case, there is a clear outcome, there is a clear benefit, and there is somebody who's owning it. Okay, it is not a full-fledged automation. AI can't still, even in healthcare industry, say that okay, this person has these class of, let's say, issues, the health parameters, etc. It still needs to be reviewed by a qualified doctor, but the process is making it easier, and that's where they are seeing the growth. Similarly, for agri industry, okay, because you're talking of industry specific, there are different levers which come into play. If you have the domain understanding of the issue that you're trying to solve, then that is the industry where you can look at automation. Generically, you cannot say that okay, financial industries, there is this automation which is going to work. There are enough and more cases of banking, insurance, or NBFCs, where there has been a lot of work which has been done in predictive analysis, in business process automation, and so on and so forth. But therefore, the answer cannot be one line. Okay, you look at automotive industry and so on and so forth, but look at the domain expertise and then consider.
Thank you. Thanks, Arun. Sorry, thank you, Praveen. GD, you had some comment.
yeah,
You
yeah.
wanted
So,
to share something
yeah, I
before.
think on the ROI for AI automation, Praveen, I subscribe to whatever he said. But for the other question on wait and watch or first mover advantage, I was just thinking of an analogy here. When we went to college, right, all of us were very. I mean, English is not our first language, so we were all learning English, and vocabulary was getting added. So there were a few people who said, "I don't need this vocabulary. I'll manage with what I have." But there were others who went for this GMAT and GATE and CAT and whatnot. So they were working on their vocabulary. So while I didn't, shift to both the sides, but my own case was, I don't have to use it, but I need to understand it. I would apply the same logic to AI as well. See where it is really applicable and go for it. If the business purpose, like Arun said, really makes sense. But not knowing, waiting and watching, sitting on the fence, that is not going to help anyone. Like I said, every person needs to understand and appreciate the goodness of AI. In healthcare, it has made huge inroads. Drug discovery, it has made huge inroads.
Yeah.
Education also, we can use it in so many places. A lot of use cases, right? So my take would be, there is nothing called wait and watch. You jump in, you start learning, you see how it is moving, you be part of the movement, right? And when the time comes, assess it and see where you can apply it.